homie then says, how many times, if any, were you told to urinate on Miss Vince?
Those are just some of the graphic details emerging from Diddy's trial, but it doesn't stop there. Rumor has it things got so intense in court that Diddy snapped and threw a chair at a journalist. In this video, we're breaking down everything that's happened inside the courtroom so far, every outburst, every allegation, and what it all means for the case. Now, before we get into the wild moment that had everyone's jaws on the floor, let me set the scene for those who aren't fully up to speed on what's going on with the bad boy mogul. Diddy is currently under serious pressure in a federal courtroom in Manhattan, facing charges that could land him in prison for life. We're talking racketeering, conspiracy, trafficking, and transporting people for prostitution. Heavy accusations that have shaken the music industry since his arrest back in September 2024. The trial officially began on May 5th, 2025, starting with jury selection and quickly moved into opening statements and witness testimony by May 12th, 2025. From day one, this case has been a full-blown media frenzy, with journalists, fans, and critics all desperate to get inside the courtroom and witness this historic trial firsthand. Now, here's what happened today that has social media going crazy. According to multiple eyewitnesses, Diddy completely lost control during today's session. As a journalist was entering the courtroom with what seemed to be case-related materials, Diddy allegedly picked up a chair and threw it in the journalist's direction. Security immediately rushed in to restrain the rapper while the judge demanded order in the courtroom. One observer described the scene as total chaos, with people ducking, screaming, and trying to avoid the flying chair. The journalist, whose name hasn't been released yet, was reportedly hit but not seriously hurt. Still, this kind of behavior in a federal courtroom is next-level outrageous, especially for someone already facing such extreme charges. Let's keep it real. This incident didn't come out of nowhere. There's been growing tension between Diddy's legal team and the press from the very beginning. His lawyers have accused journalists of destroying his image and fueling what they call a wild media circus that could threaten his right to a fair trial. They've even asked the court to silence attorneys for the alleged victims to stop media influence. But throwing a chair, that pushes the situation into an entirely new level of trouble. Legal experts are already speaking out, saying this could seriously affect how the jury sees him, even if they didn't witness the outburst themselves. The judge might also charge him with contempt of court, adding even more legal problems to his already packed case. Let me explain why this is such a massive issue. Diddy is currently charged with racketeering, conspiracy, trafficking, and transporting individuals for prostitution. If convicted, he could spend the rest of his life behind bars, with specific sentences like a 15-year minimum for trafficking and a 10-year maximum for transportation. These charges are already intense, and now, with courtroom misbehavior in the mix, it only makes things worse. The prosecution claims Diddy used his fame and business empire to pressure and exploit women over a span of 20 years, organizing drug-fueled events known as freak-offs. His defense team is pushing back hard against this story, saying the relationships were consensual and part of an open lifestyle, not criminal acts of control.
Said this went on more times, meeting up at hotels or their homes, and Diddy would direct them while having sex. Now, a supporter of the alleged victims, Jaguar Wright, spoke out before court this morning.
A key piece of evidence in the trial is a 2016 video showing Combs assaulting his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura in a hotel hallway, which has become a central focus in the case. This video was released to the public in May 2024 and shows Diddy attacking Cassie in a hotel corridor, sending shockwaves through the entertainment world and prompting Diddy to issue a public apology on social media, where he took full responsibility for his actions and said he was ashamed of his behavior. One of the most powerful testimonies so far has come from Israel Flores, a former Los Angeles police officer who said he responded to a distress call in 2016 and witnessed Combs assaulting Ventura, claiming that Combs even tried to bribe him to keep quiet. This officer's account has been especially damaging to Diddy's defense because it supports the video evidence and also introduces the serious accusation of attempted bribery to hide the incident. Another important witness has been Daniel Phillips, a male review manager who testified that he was paid to take part in intimate acts with Ventura under Combs' direction and described violent moments where Combs dragged and slapped her.
Phillips, the second witness of the day, said he was told by his boss that he was going to perform at a bachelorette party at the Gramercy Park Hotel, but when he arrived, he saw Cassie in red lingerie and a red wig. He testified she said that they would rub baby oil on each other and would see where things would go from there while her husband was...
Understood. Here's your rewritten paragraph with corrected grammar and punctuation, simplified vocabulary, and preserved tone, style, and word count. Very closely matched, all in one single paragraph without extra symbols or timestamps. Now with this chair-throwing incident, the big question on everyone's mind is how it will affect the trial moving forward. Will the judge declare a mistrial? Will there be new charges? How will this influence the jury's opinion, even if they didn't witness the outburst directly? One courtroom source mentioned that Diddy had been showing growing signs of frustration during the trial, especially when certain pieces of evidence were introduced or when specific witnesses took the stand. This chair-throwing moment seems to be the breaking point of all that pressure, finally exploding in a moment of uncontrolled anger. The legal consequences could be serious. For one, this kind of outburst might lead to the loss of some courtroom privileges, and it could also affect the judge's decisions on important motions and objections brought up by the defense. Most importantly, if news of this incident reaches the jury, and let's be honest, in such a high-profile case, it's hard to keep anything secret, it could seriously hurt Diddy's reputation in their eyes. His legal team has been struggling from the very beginning. On top of the criminal case, Combs is facing over 100 civil lawsuits from people accusing him of wrongdoing, with claims going as far back as 1991. One major lawsuit came from Cassie Ventura in 2023, which was quickly settled but triggered more investigations. The large number of accusations has made defending this case especially difficult. What makes today's incident even more important is the timing. It happened just as Cassie Ventura, Diddy's former girlfriend and a key figure in the case, was about to testify, possibly bringing new details to light. Her testimony is highly anticipated, as she is seen as the prosecution's most important witness.
Testimony resumes tomorrow with Daniel Phillips, and after that, Cassie Ventura is expected to take the stand. She is the prosecution star.
Sources close to the case have revealed that Cassie is currently pregnant, adding another layer of complexity to her upcoming testimony, as this could make her seem more sympathetic to the jury. This has created a tricky situation for Diddy's defense team, who now have to question her credibility without looking too harsh or aggressive toward a pregnant woman. The defense has been trying to present the relationship as toxic but mutual, admitting to physical fights while strongly denying any claims of sexual assault or force. However, this recent chair-throwing incident goes against that version of events and instead supports the prosecution's image of Diddy as someone who becomes violent when things don't go his way. Before ending this first segment, we need to focus on the jury, since they will play the key role in deciding Diddy's future. During jury selection, Diddy's lawyers objected to the removal of several black jurors, pointing out that 7 out of 9 strikes were used against black candidates, which they claimed showed a pattern of racial bias. The judge eventually rejected this claim, saying there was no proof of intentional discrimination. The prosecution responded by saying their choices were diverse and gave specific reasons for each removal, including dishonesty about past police issues, mixed-up answers, and personal knowledge of Diddy's life and career. The current jury is now seated and listening to the case, and they will be the ones to decide Diddy's fate, a job made even harder by today's intense courtroom moment. As the witnesses continue to testify and the courtroom drama builds, one of the most powerful pieces of evidence so far is the hotel surveillance video from 2016. This footage, released by CNN in May 2024, shows Diddy physically attacking Cassie Ventura in a hotel hallway. The effect of this video is huge. It shocked the public and seriously hurt Diddy's reputation before the trial had even started.
Angeles Hotel back in 2016 when Diddy was caught on video assaulting Cassie, and he testified that Diddy threw a sack of money at him in their hotel room afterwards to keep quiet.
When this video was shown in court, the reaction was intense. Family members visibly responded, and the jury seemed completely focused on the disturbing footage. This video has become a key part of the prosecution's case, not just because it shows real physical violence, but because it helps build a pattern of behavior that matches the larger claims of control and manipulation. Interestingly, Diddy's legal team has tried to question whether the video is real. In March 2025, they argued that CNN had edited the footage, claiming the timestamp was covered and the video was sped up. CNN firmly denied these accusations, saying the video was not changed in any way. This argument about the video's accuracy could affect whether it remains valid in the trial, though the judge has so far allowed the jury to see it. Now, let's talk about the testimony that had everyone talking. Daniel Phillip, a male review manager, testified that he was paid to take part in sexual acts with Ventura under Combs' orders and described violent moments where Combs slapped and dragged her. Phillip's testimony has been especially harmful to the defense because it directly supports the serious charges of trafficking and forced sex work.
Combs was allegedly in a corner in a white robe concealing his face with a bandana, but Phillips said he recognized Diddy's voice.
According to Phillips, he was paid to engage in sexual acts with Ventura while Combs was present, giving instructions like telling them to rub more baby oil on each other, and he also witnessed Combs dragging Ventura by her hair, slapping her, and Ventura looking drugged after taking Molly from Combs, with some encounters happening without Phillips being paid at all. This testimony directly supports the prosecution's claim of control and exploitation, especially the accusation that Diddy used his influence to dominate and manipulate the people around him.
Phillips said this went on more times meeting up at hotels or their homes, and Diddy would direct them while having sex.
Another important witness has been Israel Flores, a former Los Angeles police officer who talked about responding to a distress call in 2016 and witnessing Combs assaulting Ventura, claiming that Combs even tried to offer him a bribe to keep quiet. Flores testified that when he got to the scene, he saw Combs wearing only a towel with what he described as a devilish look in his eyes, while Ventura had a clearly visible injury near her eye.
He said he had a devilish smile. That's what he said of Combs there after that incident back in 2016.
Perhaps the most damaging was Flores' claim that Combs offered him a stack of $100 bills as a bribe. And although no charges were filed, this allegation of attempted bribery adds another layer to the prosecution's image of Diddy as someone who thought his money and power could protect him from consequences. The defense has tried to question the credibility of these witnesses through cross-examination. And during Flores' cross-examination, they focused on things he left out of his official report, like the devilish smile and the presence of another person in the hotel room, aiming to highlight these gaps and make the jury question how trustworthy and accurate the witness accounts really are. As for Diddy's behavior in court, even before the chair-throwing incident, courtroom observers noted that he looked serious and tense, often hugging his family before sitting with his lawyers, and his family, especially his sons Justin and Christian, have been regularly present and clearly supportive.
That court hearing was pretty quick. It was about 30 minutes long. I think all of us were kind of surprised that the hearing did last that short amount of time as opposed to last hearing, which was about 2 hours or so.
Interestingly, a courtroom reporter observed that Diddy showed up with gray hair, which was a clear change from how he usually looks in public, and along with reports that he has lost a lot of weight while in detention, it suggests that the case is physically wearing him down, with one observer even mentioning that he looked much thinner than usual, likely because of the effects of being locked up.
But his mom also wasn't in court today. So when Diddy came inside, it was still that standard issued NBC jumpsuit. He's wearing khaki. From that video of, I think that was obtained by Daily Mail back in September, of Diddy playing hacky sack in Central Park, to now he appeared just astonishingly thinner, which you can expect to be inside a federal detention center for a couple months now. A lot different from the luxury lifestyle that he was living before, but he appeared very noticeably thinner, and maybe being locked up in detention is starting to.
Despite these physical changes, Diddy has remained actively involved in his defense, often speaking with his legal team during the proceedings, which makes today's outburst especially surprising as it marks a major shift from the usually calm and controlled way he has behaved in court so far, and the atmosphere in the courtroom has been tense throughout the trial, with moments of chaos and 3 separate overflow rooms set up for the media, celebrities, and members of Combs' family, reflecting the high-profile nature of the case that continues to draw large crowds and long lines outside the courthouse each day.
I want to talk about the circus that is outside as well in New York City, familiar with major high-profile cases as well. Can you set the scene a little bit and describe some of the environment outside of this court?
In fact, the interest in this case has been so intense that people have been lining up overnight with lawn chairs just to get a seat in the courtroom the following day. And this level of public attention adds even more pressure to an already high-stakes trial.
Tomorrow. So I would say there are about maybe 36 people. They have lawn chairs sitting out ready to get in and stay here overnight.
One aspect of the trial that has drawn particular attention is the so-called freak-offs, a term used to describe the alleged parties organized by Diddy, and prosecutors describe these as drug-fueled encounters where women were pressured into participating, often while under the influence of drugs like Molly or MDMA, with the prosecution arguing that these were not consensual parties, but carefully planned situations where women were manipulated and taken advantage of.
He was paid a few $1,000s when he left. Phillips said this went on more times, meeting up at hotels or their homes, and Diddy would direct them while having sex.
The defense has responded by describing these same gatherings as part of a swinger lifestyle that, while maybe unusual, was entirely consensual, and this sharp difference in stories is at the heart of the case. Was Diddy a controlling abuser who forced women into these situations, or was he simply involved in mutual but unconventional adult activities? Let me be real with you. The prosecution's case has been strong so far, with not just witness statements and surveillance footage, but also physical evidence from raids at Diddy's homes in Miami and Los Angeles in March 2024, where authorities found guns, bullets, drugs, and over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant, which they claim were used in these events, and this massive amount of items is being used to show how planned and structured these alleged freak-offs were, especially since the baby oil has become a symbol throughout the trial, often mentioned by witnesses, highlighted by both legal teams, and even trending all over social media.
Everyone was talking about the baby oil, and it came up during Garagos' opening statement. She said there's nothing illegal about, having a lot of baby oil.
Another major part of the case focuses on claims that victims were drugged during the so-called freak-offs, with prosecutors arguing that some were given so many drugs they ended up vomiting, which they say proves the encounters weren't truly consensual, since no one would willingly agree to be drugged that heavily. And this forms a key part of their case about force, fraud, or coercion, which is required for the trafficking charges. The defense, on the other hand, has pushed back hard on these claims, portraying Diddy as someone who may have taken part in controversial or unusual behavior, but didn't break any laws, admitting there were moments of violence, but insisting the relationships were consensual and part of a swinger lifestyle rather than criminal conduct. Now, speaking of Diddy's legal defense, it's being led by high-profile attorney Mark Agnifilo, who's known for representing controversial figures like ex-IVM leader Keith Raniere. And the team also includes Tenny Geragos, daughter of famed lawyer Mark Geragos, who delivered the opening statement for the defense. The one moment of controversy came when the judge reprimanded Tenny for making racial comments about the prosecution team on a podcast, where she referred to them as a six-pack of white women, a moment that really highlighted the racial tension running through this trial, as the defense has also tried to bring race into the case in other ways, filing motions under the Mann Act and claiming racial targeting in those charges, while also arguing that jury selection was biased after noting that 7 out of 9 peremptory challenges were used to remove black jurors, which they said showed a clear pattern of racial bias. And all of this racial context makes the case even more complicated, especially with some observers comparing it to past trials involving black celebrities, with voices like Dr. Umar Johnson, a controversial figure himself, saying this might be part of a bigger pattern of targeting powerful black individuals.
The baby oil is important to the allegations in the case because you saw Philip come and testify that Combs wanted Cassie covered in baby oil when he was filming them having sex, and he would assault her and Philip would become uncomfortable, grab her by the hair. So we're really seeing what the government is saying with respect to the force.
However, it's important to mention that the prosecution, led by Maureen Ryan Comey, the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey, has firmly denied all claims of racial targeting, and Judge Arun Subramanian also rejected the defense's motion about juror dismissals, ruling that they hadn't proven any intentional discrimination, which matched his earlier decision on May 9, 2025, to dismiss broader arguments about racial bias. Now moving on to the immediate legal fallout, Diddy could face serious consequences for throwing a chair at a journalist in federal court, since actions like that often lead to contempt of court charges, which can bring fines or even extra jail time, and the judge now has several ways to respond, from giving Diddy a warning to imposing tougher penalties, and legal experts are already weighing in on how this outburst might affect the overall case, with former federal prosecutor Niyama Rahmani, who's been closely watching the trial, stating that behavior like this can really hurt how the judge and jury view the defendant.
and Sharp, you ain't got no business sleeping with 19-year-old snow bunnies. Dion and Shador, you ain't got no business being confident and independent. Sean Puffy Combs, you ain't got no business being a multi-billionaire mogul suing a multi-billionaire liquor company. Bill Cosby, you ain't have no business trying to purchase a major broadcasting station. Carmelo Anthony, you have no business defending yourself against white people. We can do whatever we want to do with your people.
What makes this especially damaging for Diddy is that it fits right into the prosecution's portrayal of him as someone with aggressive behavior who uses fear and control to dominate situations. And since the prosecution is building their case around the use of force, trickery, or pressure, key parts of the trafficking charges, this outburst could be viewed as a live example of the behavior they've been accusing him of all along. It may also influence how the judge handles future legal decisions, because while judges aim to stay neutral, they're still human, and a defendant who shows disrespect for courtroom rules might get less benefit of the doubt on close calls. And although some might wonder if this could cause a mistrial, legal experts believe that's unlikely due to how much time and effort has already gone into picking a jury and hearing early testimony. So it's more expected that the judge will issue a stern warning, possibly add contempt charges, and tell the jury to ignore the incident if they even heard about it. Though in today's world, dramatic courtroom news tends to get out quickly even with strict orders to stay away from media. Which is why this outburst might still affect how the jury sees Diddy even if they didn't witness it directly. And now the defense is probably working hard to limit the damage, maybe arguing that the stress of the trial and serious accusations have taken a mental toll on him, and possibly using that as a reason to push for mental health support, instead of letting it paint him as violent. Though that argument is risky since it could make the prosecution's claims about him seem even more believable. Shifting focus to the bigger picture, this trial, even before today's explosive moment, has already shaken the music industry, starting deeper conversations about abuse, sexual misconduct, and the responsibility of celebrities, especially in the entertainment world where power is often abused, and this has hit hip-hop hard since Diddy has been a major force in the culture for decades, not just in music, but in fashion, liquor brands, and media, which helped him become one of hip-hop's biggest business icons. But now, many artists who once stood with him are backing away, and his business empire is under major pressure, though. A few public figures like Dr. Umar Johnson have come to his defense and even questioned the fairness of the legal process itself.
Very difficult, Andy. And, the defense is arguing consent and the prosecution is arguing trafficking. So what does trafficking require? Force, fraud, or coercion. So they're really leaning into that force. And their argument is this: no woman would consent to being drugged. No woman would consent to being urinated on. So much so that some of them even threw up during these free calls.
Others have raised concerns about letting Cassie testify, even though she had already reached a settlement in a previous lawsuit with Diddy.
And I don't condone abuse. I don't condone assault. I don't condone trafficking. None of that. But at the same time, I stand for justice. And letting a woman who's already been paid off and signed an NDA to come into court and testify against me like y'all allowed in the Bill Cosby trial, absolutely unacceptable.
However, those defending Diddy are becoming fewer as more damaging evidence surfaces, and the impact of this case now goes far beyond just him. It's forcing the entire entertainment industry to confront how powerful men treat women and vulnerable individuals, highlighting the struggles abuse victims face when their abuser holds influence and connections. Cassie Ventura's choice to speak out despite signing a non-disclosure agreement as part of her settlement is widely viewed as a brave move that encouraged others to share their stories, with her advocacy underlining the need to believe victims and create support systems for those who have faced abuse.